Welcome to the Soulful of It podcast, where the cosmos meet the cards and the mundane becomes magical. I'm your guide, 𝗧𝗶𝗺𝗀, and in this episode, we'll explore the astrological transits and tarot for the first half of March 2026, with a part 2 episode coming mid-month. Now let's fill up your cup until you're soulful of it. Hello, soulful seekers, friends, and family. Thank you so much for joining me for another episode, and please accept my apologies for its tardy arrival. It is very Mercury retrograde up in here, which makes a lot of sense because we are now waist deep into Pisces season, and with that Mercury retrograde in Pisces, combined with the eclipse portal that we're currently moving through, almost out of, it would be an understatement to say that change is in the air and communications are about as smooth as the U.S. peace negotiations with Iran, aka not at all. Speaking of, major eclipse events have been unfolding on the world stage with no signs of slowing down, from the reckoning of regime changes to ongoing Epstein email revelations. And in the year of the magician, it's starting to feel like a magic show of madness. And in the year of the fire horse, things are already starting to get heated. I mean, is it hot in here? Or are we all just living inside of that "this is fine" meme, trying to continue business as usual when there's absolutely nothing usual about any of this business? That meme in particular really does seem to fit the dark humor of these current contexts that we're living through. And I think it's so important to find reasons and ways to laugh, to be creative, to express and experience joy, because it reminds us that not everything is on fire and everything is temporary. Even all of the insanity that we keep hearing about nonstop. And it's also important to remind us that what's happening around us, near or far, doesn't need to dictate what is happening within us. There's never been a more important time to clear your energy as well as to protect your energy. I said this in the Astrology of 2026 episode, which, quick side note, go give that a listen if you haven't already. But it bears repeating that it is not your job or duty to be all-knowing on every tragedy, every war, or every headline that is written with the intent of hijacking your nervous system. You do not owe the world your empathy in the form of being constantly informed. Remember that you are the doctor of your soul. You write the prescriptions of what you eat, be it food or information. Everything is data. And we believe the stories that we tell ourselves on repeat. Our brains literally can't discern what we are taking in from what is our current reality. That's why a lot of people in the spiritual community, a lot of people who do energy work, will advise you to be very careful about what movies you watch. Like horror movies, right? Your brain can't tell the difference between these are people acting on the screen and that's not happening to you right now. So just like that is an important piece of wisdom to keep in mind for something as simple as watching a movie. It's so important to be aware and even protective of the information that you consume and the conversations that you entertain. It's perfectly okay. In fact, it's necessary to tell someone, you know, I think I've heard enough about that for today. I met my quota of tragedy upon awakening. Thank you. And on the flip side of that, if somebody is telling you, hey, you know what? I think I'm good for now. Can we talk about something else? Just respect that. We don't need to continue to play into the us versus them. We're like, oh, if you're not with us, you're against us. No, because that's not real and it never was. Because if somebody is against you, well, they would be quote unquote above you in the sense that they're in a private jet right now headed to another fucking island, right? I don't know about you, but I don't know any billionaires. So the truth is that all the people in my world, all the people that I encounter, regardless of whether or not we agree on things, they're actually with me. That's the us now. That's part of the truth that is being unearthed from this powerful eclipse season. And back to the topic of taking in information, just keep in mind that if the scrolling is taking a toll on you, you are actually borrowing energy that you don't have today from a tomorrow that hasn't even started yet. Don't set yourself up for a deficit of energy and joy before you even awaken. Take care of the version of you that exists today, right now, in this moment, on behalf of the version of you that exists tomorrow. Give yourself permission to tap out from the woes of the world, to take better care for the soul within you, who most certainly did not incarnate to be incessantly overwhelmed by one awful update after another. You can have a bleeding heart without bleeding out. And this world is full of vampires, both of the energetic sort and also, okay, well, we're not going to go there and ruin this soapbox moment of mine. But with all of that said, let's dive right into the Soulful of Wisdom tarot spread to see what the cards have to say about this unprecedented Pisces season. Beginning with the wisdom or the rose at the center of our Soulful of Wisdom tarot spread for March is the Eight of Wands. In the traditional Smith-Rider-Waite tarot deck imagery, 8 wooden wands fly diagonally through an open sky, suspended mid-air as if they were just released. There are no people in the scene, only an image of movement. Below, a river flows among rolling hills, suggesting forward momentum and a clear path ahead. The Eight of Wands is an energy of acceleration. Things are in motion now. Messages are being sent, decisions are being made, and timelines are collapsing. As our rose for March, this card speaks to speed, alignment, and a sense of inevitability. We need to keep our eyes open as our bodies are moving to keep pace with what's already in motion. Eight of Wands reminds us that clarity isn't a prerequisite for movement. And this month is about trusting the direction the wind is blowing, knowing that not all seasons of life have so much action unfolding, and sometimes the only difference between a nightmare and a dream is how you interpret it. Now let's turn our attention to the card that we pulled for the Thorns of our rose. The Emperor sits on a throne made of stone carved with ram heads, a hint towards the Aries energy he exudes. He holds a scepter in one hand and an orb in the other, symbolizing the authority he holds in the world that he has influence over. Behind him, a mountainous landscape emphasizes structure, boundaries, and permanence. As our thorns, the Emperor brings our attention to power, control, and rigidity. Where might authority, internal or external, be stifling movement instead of supporting it? This card asks us to examine how we wield power and how we engage with and build structure. Are you leading with confidence but lacking compassion? Are you following rules that no longer fit the terrain that you're crossing? This month, the Emperor warns us against mistaking familiarity for stability. If we are to trust our inner authority, we should perhaps do an audit to ensure it actually is our inner authority and not the internalization of an authority that lies outside of us. We are our only rule makers, and we give ourselves permission, and everything else is just information. Next, let's explore the root of the spread, which is the Eight of Swords. In the traditional Smith-Rider-Waite tarot deck imagery, a blindfolded woman stands surrounded by 8 upright swords that are loosely encircling her. Her hands are bound behind her, yet the swords that are around her don't fully block her path. Pools of water around her feet suggest unacknowledged or unprocessed emotions, and a distant castle behind her alludes to a sense of freedom and abundance that she cannot currently see, but is within reach. At the root of this spread, we welcome another 8 card, the 8 of Swords, which is about self-limitation. As a Swords card, it reveals a mental prison, beliefs that restrict movement more than reality ever could. This is the internal dialogue that says, I can't, before asking, what if? The bindings are loose. The exit exists, but it requires a shift in perspective before action can follow. As the foundation of the spread, this card encourages us to take a detour away from the neural pathways that have us believing and perceiving ourselves as stuck. Instead, we are invited to remember that we hold the keys to every door we lock shut, and even when we lose those keys, we can always find a window. And that brings us to the sun of our spread, the Chariot. A crowned knight or charioteer stands in a chariot pulled by 2 sphinxes, one black and one white, symbolizing balance. He holds no reins. A city is behind him, fading as he moves into unknown territory, guided by pure willpower. The Chariot is a card of courage, and it arrives to us as a decision to say yes to the journey without already knowing the destination. This is a graduation from comfort and conformity to embark upon an adventure of ongoing, messy soul evolution. And it comes with cosmic support to move steadfast alongside the 8 of Wands to become the leader that we need with the Emperor, and to free ourselves from the cages that exist within our minds with the 8 of Swords. The month of March begins with an invitation to step into self-mastery through the practice of integration, balancing opposing energies without becoming your own opposition. We are moving faster now as the eclipses speed everything up, including collective awakening. And our ticket to ride is a confrontation of where fear, rigidity, or outdated authority has been slowing us down. With that awareness beneath us, let's turn to the astrology to see how the skies activate all of this momentum, starting with Monday the 2nd, when Mars enters Pisces, and how we feel begins to determine how we act as our emotions drive our movements forward. This is a great time for getting things done creatively, and it's also a transit that's supportive of engaging with spiritual practices, especially those where you might build some sort of ritual around them, maybe like pulling a daily tarot card, or meditating in the morning, or maybe you're one of those people who can actually handle sucking down a shot of apple cider vinegar. Just thinking about that makes me sick. I will know I'm a full-grown adult one day when I can do that, but I'm not there yet. But that being said, the ideas that are sparking ambition over these coming weeks, they might come through dreams or spiritual downloads from the ethers. So if you're trying to make a decision about where to go, what to do next, where your energy should be applied, try asking the universe for a sign and see what happens. As Mars is moving through Pisces, while Mercury is also retrograde in Pisces, there's an opportunity to pursue creative interests as well as pick back up any creative projects from the past to best leverage the revisionary elements of the retrograde alongside the Martian boost of energy that is aligning at this time. Then we have our main event, our total lunar eclipse. On Tuesday, March 3rd at, get this, 3:33 a.m. So that's 3:33 a.m. There is some angel number stuff going on here for sure. And this eclipse is in Virgo at 12 degrees. It is also the second to last Virgo eclipse, bringing us even closer to the end of this eclipse cycle, which, by the way, started back in September of 2024 with a lunar eclipse in Pisces, and then the first eclipse in Virgo that we saw was about a year ago, which was also a lunar eclipse on March 13th, 2025. In fact, this current round of Virgo Pisces eclipses that we've been moving through have been dominated by lunar eclipses, as the full cycle features 3 lunar eclipses in Pisces, 3 lunar eclipses in Virgo, and only 1 solar eclipse, which was in Virgo for the entire cycle. Which is noteworthy because that's just not always the way the cookie crumbles. It often follows a pattern of solar, lunar, solar, lunar. So we've got like lunar, 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 solar. This sounds like there's an opportunity for this to become a remix of some sort for a song that doesn't exist and probably never should. But yeah, I just was delighted when I noticed that, yeah, it really has been a bunch of lunar eclipses back to back. It's really indicative of a theme around repeating big releases, where lunar eclipse events eliminate what doesn't serve us in order to create space for new opportunities to fall into place. This lunar eclipse also happens to be a blood moon because it is a total lunar eclipse, and it will be viewable in different parts of the world, including here in North America. So if you wake up around 3 a.m., go peek outside. But if you see a white owl, go right back inside because 3:33 a.m. is the time that was reported by a bunch of people who were abducted by aliens. At least that was according to the movie The Fourth Kind, which I probably shouldn't take so seriously. But I mean, come on, we're all talking about UFOs now. But back to the plot. Virgo is our mutable earth sign associated with our health, working relationships, routines, 6th house themes, because that is the house that is connected to Virgo. So it's possible that you will encounter some sort of surprise that leads to a change in one of these Virgoan arenas. Virgo is also known as the Virgin, symbolic of purity. And as a lunar eclipse comes to clear things away, it's very possible that there will be some sort of purification taking place alongside this eclipse portal. That could show up in a variety of ways. Maybe it's a detox or an elimination diet that you have to do in order to improve your health. Or it could be a purging of energy in a spiritual and non-visible sense. Or in a more physical sense, whether that's getting sick and refunding your food for a day or having some sort of acne outbreak. Regardless of how it unfolds, it's important that we are gentle with ourselves as our bodies and spirits move through the eclipse portal. And as eclipse events don't necessarily unfold on the day of the eclipse, but often within the days, weeks, or months that follow, it may take some time for the energetic shift that's coming along with this eclipse to materialize into your 3D world. Knowing where you have Virgo in your chart will give you a better sense of where you're most likely to be impacted. Now, looking at the aspects, we see Mercury, who is the ruler of this eclipse and is giving some main character energy with its current retrograde, is within 8 degrees of the sun in Pisces. So while it's no 𝗧𝗶𝗺𝗀, there is a spotlight on our communications during this eclipse. This could bring about some spoken truths or opinions that we may not have meant to speak out loud, or maybe we did want to say it, but perhaps not in the space where the words find their way out. We must remember that Mercury in Pisces is a mouth full of puzzle pieces. Words are important, yes, but it's our actions and how we put the puzzle together that matters more than the pieces or words themselves. If someone isn't understanding you, rather than waste your breath explaining yourself again, try showing them what you mean. I actually love the idea of playing charades while Mercury is retrograde in Pisces, because not only does it just totally fit the vibe of the transit, it's also a game that is fun and lighthearted, and it's an expression of creativity that requires thinking outside of the box in order to figure things out together. And I don't mean to derail this eclipse with more Mercury in retrograde talk, but it's just got a spotlight on it, and we can either view the mischief that Mercury causes as a challenge or as an opportunity in our lives. And as an optimist, I'm always going to lean towards the latter. The other aspect that I want to highlight is Jupiter, who is in a trine to the Sun in Pisces. And this is notable because Jupiter is at 15 degrees, which is the exalted degree of Jupiter in Cancer. To quickly unpack that, Jupiter as a planet is exalted at any degree in the sign of Cancer, and for every planet's exaltation, there is also a specific degree within that sign where it is the most exalted. And for Jupiter, it happens to be 15 degrees. So this is a particularly supportive aspect that sweetens up the surprises of this eclipse portal and invites us to look for silver lining moments in the aftermath. Considering if all that takes place is happening for you, where you are the beneficiary, instead of happening to you, where you are the victim, then how does your perspective of what's unfolding change? It's one of those, sure, I was late to work, but I also avoided getting into an accident on the way here because I was running late. Types of scenarios that we may never even know happened because we are only seeing our piece of the puzzle and not the full picture of everything else going on around us. I really love this Jupiter trine. If we can lean into the Piscean possibilities of imagination, routing our minds towards the positive over the negative with that Virgoan energy that's so mercurial, right? Because of that Mercury rulership, then I think we will find more benefits to the eclipse events that are already on their way to us now. Then, on Friday the 6th, Venus enters Aries and quickly forms a conjunction to Neptune on Saturday the 7th, and another conjunction to, you could guess it, we've been talking about it, Saturn, of course, who is fresh into Aries on Sunday the 8th. These conjunctions give this first weekend in March a clash between Saturnian structures and nebulous Neptunian energy. We may be wearing rose-colored glasses only to have the wind knock them right off of our face to reveal a reality check. But then someone shows up to ask if we lost these sunglasses earlier, and our faith in humanity and the kindness in other human beings is suddenly restored. It's a bit of a contradiction, right? The energy isn't bad, it's just sending mixed signals. So right out of the gate with Venus entering Aries, we want to keep a light heart as well as a sense of humor and remind ourselves that it's not always that deep. And that not everything is a battle worth fighting, which is very Venus in Aries as well. And we have to keep in mind that Venus rules Libra, which is the opposite sign of Aries, and therefore it is in its detriment in astrological dignity during this 3-week-long transit. So similar to Mercury in Pisces, Venus in Aries isn't functioning at its highest capabilities and can have some challenges expressing itself. Translation: we can have some challenges expressing ourselves when Venus is in Aries. Unless, of course, you have Venus in Aries in your natal chart, in which case, happy Venus return. This might be a really special time for you where things actually flow easier. This transit really embodies that saying, if you want to go fast, go alone, and if you want to go far, go together. And Aries is cardinal fire, so of course it wants to go fast. When Venus says, how about a group hike? Aries doesn't reply because it's already started a solo climb, while everybody else was taking too long lacing up their boots. This is a great transit for taking initiative in relationships and not waiting around for someone else to text you back or plan an outing, but instead for you to be direct, drop a message into the group chat saying, hey, if you're free this Saturday at 7, here's where I'll be. And it's an open invite that requires others to go for it, just as you did, if they're interested. And if they're not, no biggie. You'll just enjoy your own company. And that's a really great way to get a lot out of this transit, to do things that you're passionate about with or without an entourage, knowing that you are in good company, regardless, because you are in good company when you're with yourself. Where we can get our wires crossed a bit during this transit is when the fast-paced, bold, ambitious energy just isn't landing well with others. And this may be more likely to happen during this go-around of Venus in Aries, simply because it is overlapping with the Piscean retrograde of Mercury, and our communications are already a little bit foggy at this time. So we'll be well advised to slow our roll and filter our words through our minds before they swing out of our mouths like wrecking balls to our relationships. It's also helpful to play devil's advocate with ourselves a bit when we feel a sense of ambitious clarity about what we want, but we haven't stopped yet to inquire about what others may want. The antidote to being perceived as selfish isn't to be overly selfless, but rather to simply be considerate, which isn't the initial inclination that most of us have when Venus is transiting through Aries. So this is a transit for checking your temperature and lowering the heat when you're fired up, but it's also a wonderful transit for being bold with our creative and romantic pursuits. Plan the date, but make sure you don't take someone who's got an intense fear of heights skydiving without asking for their consent first. Then on Tuesday the 10th, Jupiter stations direct in Cancer at 15 degrees. Now, I know I mentioned this when talking about the eclipse, but it bears repeating here that Jupiter is the exaltedest of exalted, if that's even a word, here at 15 degrees in the sign of Cancer. This makes the magic of this recent retrograde and the stationing direct of Jupiter even more potent. So you can think back to actually 1111, talk about some angel numbers, with Jupiter stationed retrograde, and reflect on the internal expansion that you've experienced since then. Looking at where you have Cancer in your chart will, of course, help add a layer of personalization to this self-reflection. But you can also consider the themes of Cancer to do some self-inquiry to support the integration of the retrograde period. Cancer is associated with the home, family, nurturing, and as a water sign, it is, of course, emotional in nature. So how have you been tending to your inner world or emotional needs since last November? Has there been any growth regarding your perspective on your home or family? Has there been any evolution to who you consider family and what you consider to be your home? I invite you to think of a person you know, and it could be anyone, you don't have to know them personally, who from your point of view takes really good care of themselves. If that person were to live in your body for a day, what might they do differently that could teach you how to take better care of yourself? This is a very Jupiter in Cancer coded question, and one whose answer can bring about incredible gifts of expansion in the realm of self-care. With Jupiter now stationed direct, the sun is shining on each of our gardens of emotional growth, and we will see the greatest blooms if we tend to ourselves in rejuvenating ways. And with the added benefit of Jupiter stationing direct at its degree of exaltation and its sign of exaltation, it's like we have a chia pet, and all we need to do is just add some water, and bam, it's going to grow bigger than any of us can imagine, because that's what Jupiter does. It magnifies what is already present, and it expands it into what is possible. And in a world where even a felon can become a president, I'd say anything is possible. And with that, let's turn back to the guidance of the tarot, which shows us that while movement is inevitable, direction is a choice. The Eight of Wands sets eclipse events in motion. The Emperor asks us to engage with our inner authority, to express our power with confident compassion. The Eight of Swords reveals where fear has overstayed its welcome, and the mind has become a cage from which we must jailbreak ourselves. And the Chariot reminds us that we do not need a map to get going. We just need to have an adventurous spirit and some trust in ourselves that we are capable of guiding the journey of our soul's evolution. In fact, that's one of the primary plots of all of our human experiences. The momentum of March is here. And the question is not if you want to move, but how. If you're curious to learn how the transits of this month and beyond are unfolding in your own natal chart, you can book a virtual reading with me or purchase a mini pre-recorded reading through the link in the show notes or in my Instagram bio at Soulful of It. And I did just open up my calendar for the next 3 months, so you have a lot of options to choose from. But if you ever can't find an option or you have a question, please feel free to reach out to me via email. That will be in the show notes as well. Coming up in the part 2 episode, we will talk about the Aries new moon, the start of Aries season with the spring equinox, and Venus entering Taurus. As always, it's a joy exploring the cards and the cosmos with you. Stay grounded, stay curious, stay soulful of it, and I'll catch up with you mid-March.